Call the meeting to order. Call the meeting to order. We have public comment.
There is no public comment.
And the approval of the minutes from December 13th. Does everyone approve?
I think someone has to move.
Thumbs up or a motion or
Got two? Okay. All right, so the Animal Control Agency report.
There we go, unmuted. All right, so just to go over animal numbers that we have. So for this, looks like for last year, we had a total of 627 animal impounds. Well, let me just go to the total. So we had 2,356 animals coming through our doors for the multitude of possibilities. Year to date at this time, it looks like, let me just zoom in on this little tiny number, 551 animals in our care from the city of Reading. And then I added an activity report here for our department of all activities conducted. We have 174 cases, and that could be anything from stray pickups to humane police investigations to animal control enforcement.
Any questions? Anyone? Should we move on to permit updates? There's no questions?
that's 318 Pine Street.
Mhm.
Has there been any application for a permit on the city end for this location?
There's not been any permits. I asked our clerk Nicole at 4 o'clock.
Okay,
All things in question at this point, we do not have any paperwork for.
okay. Well, moving forward, I mean, we issued citations. One of our officers who are no longer with us filed citations for a failure to obtain dog licenses and I believe vaccinations, which she has since appealed and is going to the Court of Common Pleas. So that's still open, but that was all something omitted. And as we all know, that's all required for a permit anyway. But it has been just basically a habitual pattern of failure to comply, provide information, or really do anything that is required of the bare minimum to even obtain a permit. So I would say at this point, if it does come in, we'd shut it down. And at this point, if she does bring it to court, we'll be able to, these licenses, we'll check everything. If she's still over it, we'll issue citations for the amount of animals that she has in regards to the permit. So we'll have a follow-up on that.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
How about old business, these other addresses that we have here?
We're not sure about 936 North Fifth Street. Is that a codes one? We don't have any record of that, and we don't have any.
No.
Oh,
So
oh.
we have record of.
Oh, we don't have North 9th Street.
Chickens.
Okay,
This is an old one that I think Ed previously issued NOV for. I just don't know where it's at right now.
okay. So with North Fifth Street, Ed did, it sounds like coming from Corporal Ballard that an NOV was issued by Ed when he was still in that department. Has there been any
What-
update to the NOV?
What is that address so I can follow up on that tomorrow?
Yes, sir. That it would be at 936 North Fifth Street.
I'll follow up on that tomorrow and get that information to Michelle.
Okay, outstanding. And you can feel free to shoot us an email directly if action's needed on our end as well.
Okay.
Whatever's easiest for you. Do you want owner's information or is address enough for you?
No, the address is enough. I can look everything up in our systems.
Okay, perfect.
That one we don't have anything.
We don't have record of 438 North 9th Street. I believe that is something that was at least initiated and currently being handled by codes as well. That'll be 438 North and 9th Street
Okay.
Chickens.
Yeah, if you just get me the addresses and, you know, you can shoot me an email and I can look up where things are
Okay.
currently at. I mean, between Ed leaving the department, some things may have got lost in the process.
No, I can imagine, for sure. And that goes the same for you. If you want any updates as well or need something like that, shoot over to us just in case it got lost in that transition.
Okay.
A 1029 Spring Street with the rabbits. I've tried getting a hold of him because we did make accommodations to take in those rabbits with no avail. So we'll follow up in person. I've talked to a couple of individuals that I know in that neighborhood and they're saying that the numbers are decreasing. So I have a feeling he is I hope he's not selling them, but I have a feeling he is. But we are trying to take him in and we are actively for once trying to seek him out to take his animals that he wants to surrender. We're just having a hard time hitting it. That, as we all know, was an issue where it just kind of brought us into a gray area where even if, you know, with his high volume of rabbits and the rabbits running around the city, there was no violation constituting at a state or local level due to the way everything is articulated. I had spoken to Michelle. I'm not finished at this time, but I am proposing a review of changes of some of the articulation to some of our ordinances to make it a little more broad, to then, you know, cast a blanket over the requirement to control any animal that you own. So if you have a domestic animal that is in your home or on your property and you place it and maintain it on your property, you are required to keep it on your property. And other things like that. So when that's finished, I know Michelle is going over, not to go down this rabbit hole, but I just have to put the old language in, strike that out. I'm actively working on that, so I'll get that update. But that's where we stand with Spring Street. And that would be up the next one on the more, the animal ordinance amendment. So, you know, also, you have your 6 dogs, cats also. I think that should be a point system. So I have that evaluated out because I do think that it should be more than just having 6 dogs or cats, that it should be open to all animals. And then in fact, all animals should have a point system that is created in a way that it maintains and holds the current regulations and restrictions that we have, i.e. like, you know, you technically can own a horse, but you have to go through a very specific permitting process to have a horse. That would still be intact through a permitting system. But then additionally, your 6 dogs and cats would then be 6 dogs and animals. And additionally, it would stack saying if you wanted 6 exotic animals or a certain amount or point system of exotic animals, you would need appropriate documentation and permitting for those special animals as well. So I'll have that out as soon as I can finish that for the board's review. And I know also the city legal review to make sure that it would be consistent articulation to that. Adding regulations regarding guard dogs to the code red, code blue. So as we all know, that became a hot topic in certain circles based on some situations that had gone on. I don't have a good answer for that. And the reason why I don't have a good answer for that is code red and code blue. And let's go to code blue because that's something that will extend over the evening where code red typically will not. It often will create a situation that is now you could be fully compliant at the state level per animal cruelty requirements of accessible shelter, you know, a water bowl that's not freezing, etc., but still be in violation of the local ordinance. I mean, that's just how the Commonwealth works. But in this case, that was one of those examples. On one end, we'll call let's call it a special service dog, right? If you have these dogs designated to provide a service to your property, such as guarding, I could see the merit to that argument. On the other hand, any dog that's left outside and typically has a poor demeanor is typically referred to as a guard dog in the civilian sector in the city of Reading. So I could see it, either creating and providing proper representation to individuals who deserve it. And I can also see it creating a giant loophole for individuals to ignore the Code Blue law, and we lose that benefit and power to ensure that this doesn't continue to occur. Now, in this particular case with this, this establishment, he had been advised several times of the law. He has been inspected and cleared of any violation of animal cruelty, and that had been advised to him as it did have accessible shelter. And he had been instructed to require that animal to retain and maintain its presence in that structure during the Code Blue. So, you know, from that aspect, any,
Can I interrupt?
yes,
So I think I am aware of the incident that you speak of, and I, as the city attorney, I want to advise you not to discuss the circumstances of the case
understood.
on public record, just
Absolutely.
the case. Just-
Absolutely. No, I appreciate that. So either way, I would just take it into consideration that when creating exceptions to ordinances and laws, that it may create a larger loophole that will basically significantly affect or decrease the efficacy of that ordinance. And then I think everything outside the zoning ordinance amendment, that would be outside of our department. So that is what I would have update wise there.
We have had several transitions in zoning, and so that's not moved forward.
So, since we're moving on to the zoning, just a couple of points on the ordinance being proposed. Now I understand a lot of people worked on this and thought about this and worked hard on it. So, I mean, here's what I think. And obviously you guys are the board and you can act to adopt this or not to adopt this, but to move this forward to council or recommend this to council and so forth. But here's, you know, we reviewed this, we took a look at this. And I've also reviewed the current ordinance, animal ordinance that we have on the books. And it seems, I mean, we can make some changes to the current ordinance, for example, to expand or at least make the definition of domestic agricultural animal more specific. Because my understanding is previously that the idea was that you guys were concerned with large animals. So whatever those definitions are, we can make it more specific. So I don't think this is, quite frankly, necessary. I think it makes things a whole lot more harder for people, regular people, to read and understand. Now, I understand you guys feel that this is something that needs to be addressed, and you worked on this. So, you know, I don't mean to suggest that, you know, there's no good ideas here, but it's just the feeling is that when there's a law in the books, you don't want to, that's working, or at least that's more understandable by people. People can read it, understand it. You don't want to create this point system that may make it more difficult. And you don't want the law to also create odd results, because, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, but the way I'm reading it, a child, according to this, would need a permit to have a rabbit and a dog in the house, because a cat dog is 1 point, and something called a lagomorphus, which is, I believe, a big rabbit, is 5 points. So that's 6 points right there. And that's just a result that's really not, you know, you don't want that result. I mean, a child can have a rabbit inside the bedroom and a dog and a cat and so forth. So that's where we are. So like, and also we can't have, like, the bottom here basically says that section 141-215 stays in force. Well, you can't. These are two basically contradictory sections. They basically create two different schemes for for this particular control of this particular problem. So you have to repeal one. And I would suggest that you keep section 141-215. It's a perfectly valid section. It states it shall be unlawful for anyone to own, harbor, or permit at large any exotic animal, domestic, agricultural animal, or native wildlife animal. Now, in the definition section, if you guys want to add a specific definition to what those terms means, for example, such as, or such as but not limited to cows, goats, horses, pigs, that's fine. I think that would make it clear to anyone reading the statute without a law degree what is permitted and what is not. So that's basically our thoughts on the issue. I know that you guys, looked at this hard, and I know you guys are working in this field, but from a legal standpoint, I think what we have really does work. We can amend the definitions to make it more clear to people, but at least that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Well, I think some of the problem too was not just large animals, but it was also the multiples of small animals as well. Because I know that there were some issues with the rabbits that they were just multiplying. And I know there has been issues in the past as guinea pigs as well. So I think it was also trying to limit those smaller animals in the very large numbers.
I do understand that, but again, we're talking also about fish and small reptiles. I mean, nobody's going to be standing there. Fish is 0.1 per animal. Nobody's going to be standing there and counting if you have 50 fish, or whatever it is. So again, when you get to a point where it's kind of like that, you don't want to have something like that on the books. You want something clear and simple. Small animals, again, maybe we can. These are just suggestions. We can work if small animals, lizards, and so forth are a problem. We can even provide a subsection addressing those directly. But you just don't want a statute where it says there's a 0.1 per animal, which includes fish and insects. It just doesn't jive. Let's put it that way. That's my 2 cents. And again, just 2 cents from just the statutory or ordinance point of view. Ultimately, it's up to you guys and up to council.
The application says for 6 or more dogs or cats.
Oh, no, I will agree with you. As the person who wrote it, that was definitely a struggle, was how do you make basically tiered numbers to make it a balance that you don't make something currently legal illicit. But I agree with you as why tear down a system that's not necessarily broken, where you can, we'll say, take the definitions and spruce those up to make them more modernized. So I think that the main thing is there's lack of articulation. And I think you're correct in which, if that's correct, if that truly is the issue, is the articulation doesn't cover what is needed, then focus on that, not the statute itself. So I do agree with that to that degree, and I can see the troubles that could create, or the frustrations that it could.
Which I take that as you have to have under.
One thing, and we don't, hold on. Where are we in this? We have new stuff. Okay, we'll bring it up on new business.
Any more comments on this one? Okay, new business?
So 148, this is pretty much. Okay, so with 1048 Mulberry Street, we're actually going to be going back and doing another inspection anyway, regardless of the permit side to it. Allegedly, this was supposed to be a quote unquote temporary issue with breeding, but we're watching it with breeding. And I'm not too happy with their just demeanor and statements that I'm hearing from the public. So either way, I'm not, let's say they decide to keep the dogs in the home and they want to get a permit. I'm not thrilled for them to have a permit and continue, because I know if they get a permit, they're going to continue to get more dogs and not file an additional permit or update the permit until they are forced to do so. And I have a feeling we will always be chasing their tail anyway. That's just my opinion at this time. I don't know if they did file a permit or not. We did, and it's been advised to them that whether they're here for a day, a week, a year, it is required to have a permit when you have animals that you place in your home that bring you over that limit. So we're also, a lot of these things, there are a lot of pups, so they're unvaccinated due to their age, but we're getting to a point where if they remain in that house, they will be crossing over that threshold to be required vaccinated. And the excuse of a veterinarian exempting the mother from a rabies vaccine due to its pregnancy and weaning is starting to grow old, and we haven't received any official documentation. So that's really what's prompting that follow-up on our end as well.
Was she pregnant when they were
Well-
trying to do that?
Yeah, so she was nursing when we did her inspection first, and the statements made to us was a veterinarian exempt that dog at that time for the update due to that nursing, which is, as you know, can be standard affair, but with that standard affair comes a certified letter of exemption, which we have not received. So it's,
I think we're still in the license.
yeah, and regardless of that, we're at a point now where we're beyond that. So it wasn't a health reason, it was just a temporary stay
Okay,
due to that situation.
okay.
100 Neversink Street, we've had many crossings with this individual who resides there. At this time, the individual is at a compliant number, so has reduced the numbers. Is she?
She's one.
Okay, she's one over.
These two,
So she's not one over, but she continues to have one over inside that
Because
home
of
that comes and goes.
brother-in-law
Yeah,
has
so what
the
we're gonna
animals.
do is we're just gonna, I'll have Adam, we'll be handling that violation to that point. We've had a plethora of health issues break outside of that home. We've dealt with them. Parvo was festering inside of that home and spreading in the neighborhood. And it just, Amanda Walsh, not an individual of malice or we'll say mean spirit, but she's an individual that seems to be victim of circumstance that she continues to author of herself. She used to live on McElvin Street. She moved right across over to here on Sinking Springs, and the problems just continue to follow and fester with her. We have reduced the numbers down because I think originally we're at what, 13?
yeah, if not more.
13 to 16 dogs inside that home. It's been a bit of an issue. I know that to some degree, there were issues with the current state of the home from a codes standpoint, which I can't get a straight answer, nor do I trust many things that don't get supplemented with proof from her. So either way, we will most likely, I'll have it by Friday, but we'll probably be issuing the citation for that. And we did finally receive updated vaccines and licensing for everyone in the home, with the exception of the brother-in-law's dog, which he has since been cited for that failure. Before I get into rooster and chicken complaints, one thing that's been brought to our attention we wanted to just state is when looking at the current standing of the application for keeping of 6 or more dogs and cats. When you look at the ordinance itself, where is this? The language that's on the ordinance doesn't necessarily line up. Hold on, I move so fast.
Yeah, it's not
I
there.
hear
Here we go, here we go.
So, saying that it will be,
More than 6. So in.
yeah, more than 6 dogs, right? So, hey, you need a permit for more than 6, where the permit says keeping of 6 or more dogs. So the permit gives the impression that you need a permit for 6 animals. The ordinance is stating you need a permit for 7 and beyond. So we just wanted to bring that out. We do clarify it, but we even noticed internally we were having confusion based on that difference of language there between what's written on the permit, what's written in the ordinance. So just for consideration there.
I will make that correction.
Okay, perfect.
on the ordinance, it says more than 6 cats or more than 6 dogs, or a combination of thereof. So yeah, what it reads like, it says that it's unlawful to have 7, not 6. So if you guys are looking for 6, right? It's unlawful to have 7.
Yeah, we're just saying here on the permit, it says keeping of 6 or more. So the permit
Oh, okay.
gives the impression that you can't have
So
6.
you have to-
Yeah, that's all.
Gotcha.
Rooster chicken complaints. We don't have too many of those yet. It's springtime,
Unless it
so
was Put on there because they had something.
yeah, I don't know if codes or someone else in this organization or this board here has any complaints. We haven't gotten any new ones necessarily from the city. We did do a group investigation, and I'll get more information for cockfighting in the city. We kind of hit some dead ends there, but we worked with the federal USPS investigators and did a search warrant on some parcels. We did confirm that they were cockfighters, but we have not been able to prove. 15 came into the city. We were able to bypass 2, and we have not been able to locate the individual they were intended for, nor where those animals went, which unfortunately is very common. Once they hit somebody's porch, nobody knows anything and the animals all disappear. So as of right now, we do believe that they're entering the city. And we can go more on it, but we at least got attention of it, looked into that matter. We do have some of them here, but we did confirm that the locations associated with those parcels were vacant of any poultry or any animal that required a permit at that time. But we have not, other than that incident, we have not received any new information yet, but it's very common that over the next couple of months, if not days, we'll be receiving more complaints about chickens as people go outside and hear more.
I added that Charlie had indicated at the Board of Health meeting last week that he had started getting multiple complaints, so I thought that would be best discussed here.
Okay, understood.
I mean, at this time of year, it's normal for us to start receiving more chicken complaints. We do the best we can to try and address those complaints. Sometimes you can't determine even which property they're on because there's an empty lot or so forth next to it. And it's hard to do enforcement on it when you can't prove where they belong to. In the future, in a situation like that, and I'm just going to give you an example. We had a problem on top of Hawkins Street in the 600 block. There's 2 lots that do not belong to neighbors, but there's chickens running around in the lots. We can't prove who they belong to. Is that something that ARL would like us to call them about to take the chickens, or how would you like that addressed in the future?
Yeah, I mean, if the way we handle this is there's 2 types of chickens in the city of Reading. The owned chicken, which is probably about 30% of the chicken simply because we caught somebody red-handed owning them, and the stray chicken, which is the I don't own that, I don't know why that's in the alleyway chicken. That's 70% straight. Those are stray chickens. We'll take them because they're stray animals, or remove them if we can catch them. Now, there's a couple of populations that are, we'll say, quote, wild, meaning they're thriving on their own and they truly aren't owned by anyone. I think they might be fed by passerbyers, but those we've tried, they can run away. But if we can catch them, we'll take them, and then we'll get with codes if there's like coops or property management or whoever it may be. If there's coops being built on these vacant lots, we'll get with you as well to deconstruct those while we remove the animals to make sure that they don't go back as well. But yeah, please call us. Those are stray, so we have just as much authority to go in there and grab them as anybody, and we'll just bring them right to our shelter.
No, I appreciate the update there because I'm kind of getting myself into this here and I'm learning.
Understood. And when it comes down to chickens, it is not uncommon that individuals, again, they're also transient animals. A lot of chickens in this city aren't intended to live longer than a couple of months. Most of them are supposed to be fed food, but they get shuffled around to other properties for whatever reason. So it's very common for them to be in more temporary accommodations, which is a lot, as opposed to I own a dog, I built a dog structure. It's very hard to deny I own a dog standing in front of a doghouse. So with that said, if people want to play, if it becomes the card is played that they're stray, we'll take care of it, that aspect. But at the same time, we will do investigations with the public that if we find out people are making them that way, we will investigate it. And if we can hold them accountable, we will as well. So I don't want
So,
people thinking they can be
would
slick.
you like to be the point person on this, or call Savannah, or who would I
Yeah, I
try and
mean,
get?
if you just call our main department, like the main number, extension 400,
Mhm.
this comes down to basic animal control incident. So any officer that's in my department can handle these things, and we will.
Okay,
And
All
then
right.
you can shoot an email to any of the officers as well, and we'll make sure that it gets where it needs to go.
all right, thank you.
Not a problem.
The last item on the agenda, that pet store ban. This was a cold email that just was received by city council, and before I give it to all of them, I just wanted to take the board's temperature on how you all feel about this, either way, and Igor as well. Like I said, I just wanted to open it up for discussion and see how you feel about it before we take any further action.
Michelle, I mean, I know I'm not, a part of the board actually, but I'm not familiar with what you're talking about the pet store thing.
So part of the agenda packet was an email from a woman. Oh, now I can't find her. Jessica Nab, who explained the issue with pet stores and puppy mills with their relationship, and then provided sample ordinances from Pittsburgh and Bellevue, Pennsylvania, who have banned pet stores within their municipal limits.
Okay, thank you for
Pet
that.
stores, not pet supplies. So she was very specific about you can sell them food and those kinds of supplies, just not the actual animals themselves.
What wasn't clear about that? Where would she, like, let's go back to fish and things like that. Where would she suggest that people go for those kinds of things?
And that's where I was coming to you. This is mostly the Pittsburgh, for example, talks specifically about commercially bred dogs, cats, and rabbits. So I guess you could be very specific about what you're addressing here. So these seem to be standalone ordinances in those municipalities, and I didn't know also to Igor, that would be something we'd have to look at, whether this becomes part of the animal control chapter or if it would be something standalone, if there's interest in moving it forward.
Random question. I'm not entirely, I've never seen a pet store in Reading. Is there one?
There used to be, they
Okay.
are all closed at this point, but that doesn't mean that one couldn't open in 6 months.
There
So-
was many in the 70s and 80s, that
Mhm.
anything from dogs to lizards to birds. But most of that is now mainstream with, your bigger pet supply stores and things along those lines.
I will say, regardless of what the outlook or consensus would be on allowing that, because I could see arguments on both sides. I know my organization just generally will hold a stance more against pet stores because of the detriments they often can cause, and I could see the side of, not limiting businesses from thriving within city limits as well. I would say one of our biggest issues that we have across the county is the Green Dragon Market in I believe Lancaster County, and that's mostly because they will adopt out anything. And we're talking about pythons and certain types of lizards. So I would say if there was going to, if it was decided that, hey, pet stores should remain, there should be at least some type of articulation limiting or regulating the possible selling and purchasing of prohibited animals within city limits. If you don't want someone to open up and be like, hey, I'm selling pigs. If you can't have them here, you need to go through a permitting process. It should probably be limited to how they're being obtained or purchased and sold within city limits.
And I did look over the email from Jessica, and she does have cited in there about the Perfect Match Pet Shop, which is actually the one that was originally in the mall. And I know we've all kind of heard some hearsay and some stories and actually experienced things from some of the not good medical stuff that's going on with the animals that come from that organization. And I believe that there was that's what they're trying to prevent, is they're trying to prevent organizations from that, like that, moving into the city or starting in the city. Because I know at this point, there is a very large outcry trying to drive that pet store out of where it is now in Exeter. It is not within the city limits, but it is very close. I think the big problem is that they're concerned about is the puppy mill dogs and the dogs that basically have questionable health histories. They're trying to limit that. And the other two instances with in Allegheny County, where they actually did the no pet store ban, that was more addressing, once again, the commercially bred puppies, cats, and rabbits. So it didn't necessarily address the small animals like fish, hamsters, reptiles, things like that. So I think what Jessica's trying to do is trying to limit that, the puppy mill dogs, pretty much.
We heard a lot about that store, so, and we've had people come from there, so I didn't realize until about a month ago, that's what it was. In the mall, so I can see that. I just like Hayden said, I don't want to see this, a lover of tropical fish, say not be able to open a store here in the city, that kind of thing. I mean, I think there's some people who have a great appreciation of certain of animals, and I think giving them the ability to do something right with them, I don't want to, I just want to, I was just concerned about that.
Another thing to note too is as of where it stands today, the typical enforcing authority is the Department of Ag when it comes down to dogs. So if you have dogs and you're essentially selling them and retailing them, under most circumstances, you will fall under the definition of a kennel and in turn be under those regulations. With that said, that only pertains to dogs and it will only pertain to dogs. So if you're selling dogs or if you're selling everything but, it's only going to, stay on the dog. So I would suggest outside of that, there really is no enforcing, overseeing, or regulating agency on a state level. So it really comes down to a very micro level of the locality itself to provide the definitions, boundaries, enforcement and regulation of those locales. And most of the time they do not. So that becomes another issue, is that other than health codes, they're really run rampant over past anything at that point. So I just always suggest that, hey, if it decides that we want to have it in, it should always be brought into consideration of how to articulate just oversight, not necessarily enforcement, but oversight. So it doesn't, the health department can only do so much. If it's not affecting human beings directly, it's going to be allowed to continue, and that can be a huge threshold. So.
And I do think it brings up that point as far as who is going to do oversight, because if we, if it gets addressed that, okay, they can't do any commercially bred animals, or they can't do this. Who is going to be inspecting it? Who's going to make sure that any animals that are there? Because right now, what's being said is that some of these dogs at this pet store are from a rescue. So who's going to be the one who's going to be verifying that they're coming from rescue? You know, and where these dogs are, or animals are originating from. So it does offer a whole nother level of oversight.
Igor, would this be something that would be relative to zoning? Or kind of relative to zoning?
Uh, I'm not sure. I mean, I'd have to take double check. It seems like zoning just strictly speaks about commercial versus residential versus what type of business, certainly, but I don't think it. I'm not sure if it specifically goes into that detail, but I have to double check.
Okay.
In terms of zoning. And again, it's up to the board if you guys, and I'm not sure how you guys do it. You can vote on look into this. My only suggestion is, sometimes, don't fix a problem that doesn't exist. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, if there's no pet stores, we're basically legislating a problem that doesn't exist, or trying to fix a problem that doesn't exist in the city. But I understand the argument if somebody wants to open a business, there will be something on the books that addresses this specific issue. So I can look into the zoning issue, and I'd suggest the board take a look at this and see what you guys, vote on it, or however, you guys usually proceed.
So we'll wait till we get some more information and go from there. Is that what I'm understanding?
I mean, seems like the person sending the emails has provided two comparable jurisdictions, one big, one small. Looks like that has adopted this ban, not on pet stores, but necessarily on pet stores that sell puppy mill type of animals. And I think everyone on the board has rightfully kind of focused on, first and foremost, the enforcement issue. How do we go in there? Do we inspect paperwork? How do we find out that these animals are puppy mill in the first place, and how do we enforce it? Do we have the resources to enforce it? And those are all valid issues that you guys can deliberate on.
Michelle, who would, who would be the person that, for instance, the perfect match? Who would be the person that would go in there and take a look at that to see if they're complying to like puppy mill laws and whatnot? Who would that be?
Maybe Charlie can answer that a little bit better. Hayden indicated that it would be dog specific for the Department of Agriculture. I'm not sure if that would fall to our health inspector here, or if that would be something different, which is kind of why I asked about the relationship with zoning.
Yeah,
Just trying to think of, how
From
all
my
the departments
perspective,
work together.
I'm sorry, Michelle. From my perspective, okay, I would say that yes, that would probably fall under the codes department, but the city of Reading does not have people that are knowledgeable enough in this particular thing to be able to take on that type of responsibility. It would take creating a whole different entity within the department in order to be able to deal with that type of situation. I mean, that's really the only comment I can make in that. We're very limited as far as animals go. We depend on ARL for a lot of the animal related things because we don't have the knowledge in those areas. To expand on that, like I said, it would create something that we're not capable at this point of dealing with. We would have to be expanded with people that have knowledge of it, and we do not.
So, I mean, just hearing this and trying to think about it, it sounds like if we either do not adopt something like this at all, or if we do adopt something like this, we basically just straight across the board put limitations on, I don't know, size of animals or whatever, and just basically not put in dogs or cats because we can't oversee, we can't check on to make sure that they're coming from reputable places and everything else. So it's like it either has to be one or the other extreme. We either don't touch it or we exclude dogs and cats.
And I don't know from a legal standpoint, maybe Igor can interject on this. I don't know what capability the codes department would actually have legally to go into these places. Under what rule? Would it be health? Would it be codes? We don't have ordinances to that level, so there would take a lot of changes to do certain things.
And excuse my ignorance, but I don't know, because this organization already exists in Exeter. Would it make sense to maybe reach out to Exeter Township and see how they've handled it? It's just, I don't know.
I mean, it might, but you have to understand that Exeter Township is not Reading. They're not a super densely populated area.
No,
So
I know, I know.
a lot of things in the way that we do them in Reading, they do so different that we could not do the same things here. It just, manpower wise and everything else, it just wouldn't be feasible.
No, I completely understand that. I didn't know if there might be some parallel as far as what department or what area oversees it, just to give some guidance.
I can certainly look into that for you. But the difference, like with Exeter, okay, from a codes standpoint, Exeter might have 3 people and they all do everything, where Reading, people are more specialized in what they do.
Right, and just because it's something that Exeter can handle doesn't mean it's something that the city can handle. I understand that completely.
How about this? I work there. And I know the people, the township building, I talk with them regularly. Why don't I reach out to them and see if they've gotten complaints and or how the codes were handled for the structure itself. I know there's been pet stores there before. I think AC Pond had Pond had a place there at one point. So I can reach out and see if anyone there has any information that maybe they're willing to share, and let you guys know what I find out.
No, I'd appreciate that information. I mean, I know a lot of things. The reason they're handled by the Department of Agriculture is because of diseases coming from other states and so forth. And we would not even have access to that type of information, where the things come from, or even know where to look for that information. Because there was a time, and Michelle may remember this, where somebody was trying to open a live chicken market on Penn Street. One of the reasons why we had discussed that at the health board and decided that it wasn't a good fit for Reading, it would be too hard for us to control where are these animals coming from. Are they getting shipped from New Jersey? Are they coming from Virginia? This is USDA thing. There's a whole lot of things involved in what we're discussing.
No, and that's why I had mentioned about, I think it doesn't do any good for us to waste time figuring out who would oversee whether the dogs had their shots or they had this or they had that, because it's just a level that we can't accommodate.
I completely agree with that.
Okay, so we'll check back on this at the next meeting. Does that sound good? Any other new business? Or is that it?
I don't believe we have anything else.
Do we want to set a date for the next meeting?
Do you want to do that now as a group, or do you want me to send out a
I like,
poll?
yeah, sending it out always helps.
poll
I think
when it's
great.
closer? Do we want to do June, or do we want to pick a different, is that enough time to do what we need to do for next time?
June sounds fine.
That should be good for us.
Rich, is Wednesday still going to be the day for you in June?
It is. I will say, I forgot, I am going on vacation in June, the 7th to the 14th, just FYI.
Okay. I will send a poll out.
Thank you. All right, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All right, guys, thank you.
Thank
Good.
you.
Good night.
Night.